Hello, NorDev. Oh, yes. How are we all feeling? Good. Yes, good. Yes. I thank you for coming to see me at 4 p.m. right at the end when everyone should be sort of half falling asleep. But good news. You have come to the man that is like Steve Ballmer and is going to go around the stage going, yeah, blah, 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 blah. So I'm not really going to be that terrible. I'm not going to bully you that much. So, hello everyone, I am Jim Seconde. I have a lanyard that says 1 times engineer because I am a 1 times engineer, I'm not a 10 times engineer. Here's a little bit, here's a little bit about me. My clicker just doesn't want to work. Oh, go on clicker, there we go. Are we happy? Yes, we're happy. So, I set up the Birmingham PHP user group because it didn't exist at the time. PHP West Midlands had closed down at that point. And I now do a sort of evening conference in Birmingham quarterly called Fusion. Come to it, it's great. You can see John Skeets talk on a different subject from the ones that he's done. And other cool people like Danny is sitting in front of me and she's spoken recently. Here is my Twitter handle. If you want to say how much you can't stand this talk, or you love this talk, or you just want to abuse me in general, there we are, @Seconde, and there's my LinkedIn. Right, so a lot of you are probably quite confused at the moment about how do you approach tool shaming and what does it look like, so I'll just give you a little bit of background. This is kind of a story, and it's a story that I didn't know when I was chosen for NorDev, and I started that it would fit in so well with all of the keynotes, with Karen, with Gail, with what John is talking about with kindness, but you will see it slowly fit together. But this is a personal story and other people's personal stories being fitted, like you'll be seeing tech elitism and gatekeeping in action. And it's not good, and you will see why. So, as a sort of starting point, where do we start? So instead of talking about my story first of all, I'm just going to give a little bit of a sort of background of where we start with when it comes to elitism. So, in the beginning of computers and things like that, the computer is not a noun to describe a machine that is in front of you. It's an adjective to describe a person that is doing the computations. So, what was really interesting when starting to write this talk is to find out that all of the pioneers in programming are all women. And we have some pioneers tonight. So we've got on here, we've got a handful of massive pioneers. We've got Ada Lovelace on the left, the godmother of programming. Then we've got Grace Hopper, who was at the US Navy and invented COBOL. Then we've got Sister Mary Keller. Sister Mary Keller was the first joint PhD in computer science in the world. I didn't know it was joint originally because it was awarded with a man, and then I got mansplained on the internet that I got it wrong, which was really weird and interesting. Then we've got Margaret Hamilton, who had a very, very famous picture of her working with a team at NASA. That is all of the code being printed out on there that sent mankind, or humankind, to the moon. And then on the far left, I'm looking at my screen here, on the far right even, that's Kathleen Booth. Kathleen Booth invented the first assembly language, which takes us up to, we're going into the sort of late 60s and we get to the sort of 1970s. So, if women are pioneering at this stage, what are the men doing? The men are being pioneers in the world of computing, but they're pioneering in hardware. So it falls into gender stereotypes. So, you know, I'm a man, I like to build things and electrics and I got welding mask and all that kind of thing. From about 1970, women go from it's estimated at about 70% of the workforce to about 3%. No one really knows why, although there's been lots and lots of studies. That isn't the purpose of this talk, to explain why, because I don't know. It's just, I'm setting a background kind of picture for you, right? So, at this point, hardware and home computer kits and things like that become synonymous with the software and the operating system that ships with them. So, now, the two things are together. So I use Xerox machines, so Microsoft Windows appears, and then big business and markets and things come into it. And when we get to that stage, your choice of technology, your choice of computer and the software that ships with it defines who you are and what your identity is. I am a Microsoft person and I use this. This is because of this. I am a Linux user, or Unix at this time, right? And that puts up silos. So where we get to, when we get to the let's fast forward to the 1990s, there's a Dilbert for everything. Here's my Dilbert. This pretty much sums up where we're at now, where I'm in this box, and you're in this box, and you're in this box. So, that sets the scene, but this is a talk about me. I'm a software engineer now, but I'm not really a software engineer. I'm an actor. I graduated with theatre studies and English literature from Chester University, so we have been talking in previous talks about diverse backgrounds into tech. I'm one of them. When I found out that you could actually get a job where it allows you to speak on stage and then be quite dramatic, and also talk about tech, great, that was me. But Impostor Syndrome. Has anyone heard of it? We've already had a talk. We've had a talk on it. If you've not heard of it, you should have seen the talk. My imposter syndrome coming into the world of tech was an absolute nightmare. It was off the scale, and I thought, I don't know what I'm doing. But I wanted to be a web developer. And at this stage, I was doing lots of business intelligence and lots and lots of SQL and things like that. So I had to choose a language to learn. And this is about 2012. I didn't know what to choose, so I went on the internet and I said, what do I do? So everything's written in this. So I went, okay, I'll choose this. I had absolutely no idea walking into this of the horrendous baggage that comes with this programming language. I don't care. All I want to do is I want to learn and I want to be paid to write code for people and I want it to be my career. So I didn't know, but I did do it. I did do it. They sent me on a course at work, and they were like, oh, "Okay, learn it." And I was just learning loads of raw PHP, like do this, blah blah blah. And by the time it gets to actually getting a job and to be practical in web stuff, then they say, "Well, you don't actually do raw PHP, do you? You have to learn to use a framework." And I'm like, "What's a framework?" Okay, right. Well, it doesn't really matter. You'll see how it wraps things, and it's how you wrap HTTP requests and things like that. But what you need to do is you need to learn Zen 2. Those are the people that make the PHP engine, blah blah blah. And so I sat down and I go, what is this? This is terrifying. If you've not seen Zen framework, it's enormous. And I sit down and I start learning it. I've got probably about 2 months. I think, okay, well, I'm starting to get the hang of it, but then I speak to people that go to meetups because I'm a product of the PHP meetup scene. They say, no one actually uses Zen 2 framework. Everybody uses Symfony because it's borrowed off the way that Spring does it in Java, right? So it's all like dependency injection and version of control and okay. Let's just slow down. Okay, right, so I'm going to learn Symfony. So I do, and then I get a job. I got a job. Hey, I'm a Symfony developer in the back end. And everyone goes, right, okay, it's really, really cool that you spent all this time learning Symfony, but we need to really sort of advance, really. So nobody actually uses Symfony anymore. Everyone uses Laravel framework. And then I think, right, okay. So I've been a web developer for about less than a year at this point, and already that has happened. And I'm starting to get absolutely burned out with one technology stack, and that's all I got to. But I did say I was a web developer. So you can tell I was a web developer because I have a stock image of lots and lots of HTML flying around everywhere, and that indicates that I'm a web developer. And I've entered the industry. And this is a series of quotes of what I have walked into that are all first-hand quotes. They're all in Comic Sans because that's what I think of them. Here they are. JetBrains IDEs make bad developers. Your IDE doesn't make you a bad developer. You make you a bad developer. Your IDE can't stop you from writing a method in a controller that's 2,000 lines of copy-pasted SQL that's procedural, right? It can't stop you from doing that. It can just help you. It's a tool. That's all that there is. So with this quote, this was said by someone who was a decision maker, and none of us could actually use the tools that we wanted to use at work because this happened. That's not good. This is a famous one. When I entered into the industry, I thought, well, I want to be part of the club, so I copy everyone else, right? So I'm like, oh, no, and this gets said. WordPress developers aren't developers. So we've talked about kindness a lot and talked about humanism and applying humanism things in our talks at NorDev. So An important thing to bear in mind is when you say something like this, it affects someone. But also the quote is wrong. The quote is wrong because I can say I am a WordPress developer and I can put my hand up and say, do you want one? And someone will go, yes, please. How does the transaction work? The transaction works of I give you a load of code and you pay me money. So you're wrong. That's writing code for money. That's being a developer. Sorry, you're wrong. If you choose PHP to write this service that I'm talking about on stage, then you don't belong here, and about 2 people found it really funny. Here, of course, is the important bit of the context. It was said at DevOps London, and it was said by a Python developer or something like that. I can't remember. It might be Golang or something like that. But bit of a problem. The joke is kind of where it was said. And when you say it in front of a load of people here at the headquarters of this organization that is built entirely on the programming language you're slating, it doesn't look very good. It makes you look a bit stupid. Why would you do that? And Bobby Hill is really not happy and he's riding his bike away, and I just included that gif because I love it. But that's kind of jovial. Let's make it not jovial. This is not jovial. This was said to me when I started the PHP group in Birmingham. This was said by the manager of the company I was at in front of 50 of my peers. And I said, I've started a group. Can anyone come? Is anyone interested? And that's the response that I got. If that's the response you get, I think I should probably go back to acting. What's happened is I didn't know this when I came into it, but the tech industry, as far as I'm concerned, is massively, massively toxic. But I'm not alone. And that's where things start to change. So let's have a look at it out in the wild. Let's look at tech elitism. You've probably, can anyone put their hands up if they've actually seen tech elitism or experienced it? It's okay, it's about 50%. Here is why it's so relevant now. I showed you 3 frameworks, and the reason why this is relevant out in the wild is when I was confronted with this, nobody who can do this? It's absolutely mind-boggling because if I'm thinking, how can I keep up with that, right? But more to the point, like, how are my peers? None of them seem to be struggling with all of this, right? How are they keeping up with it? And more importantly, computer science students that come out of university with MSCs and things, how are they keeping up with this sheer volume of tooling? Because when I speak to students from Aston University, University of Birmingham, they're being taught things like this, right? They're being taught design patterns. They're being taught in Java. They're being taught relational database management systems. That's cool. That's computer science. That's being taught the things that we need to succeed. But that doesn't teach you that. That's the problem that I have. So why it's more relevant today, I mean, you mix in this toxicity that I've just talked about and my imposter syndrome as well. The smug-looking man there, not a developer. Right. I jumped the gun earlier and said, here's some examples in the wild. So here is some examples in the wild. Let's have a look at some forms that it takes. This is Fabien Potentier, who is the author of the Symfony framework, and he wanted to have a poll on whether he should introduce makefiles back into Symfony for Symfony Flex or something like that. I can't remember. And it affected him enough that he tweeted this. And his answer that he got from someone was Supprime ton putain de projet, Fabien et laissez les places à telle et sans la revelle. And I let you translate that. So, not everyone here is obviously fluent in French, so here's the translation. The translation is not good. It clearly affects the person, right? That's Fabien is very upset because that's not contributing to anything. I mean, before we said the smug man here is not a developer, but now we're saying this man is not a developer. Who has the right to say these sorts of things? Especially like with the internet, it's very sort of dark, isn't it? It's like the sort of troll culture. You can say whatever you like. So I thought, well, let's compare the two, right? So we've already established that Fabien here is not a developer, right? And this is that's Dave. Thanks, Dave. Hello. Right, Dave's made the comment. So, I mean, what contribution have they given back to technology? Fabien's got a number. I thought, well, if I can compare them, let's pull out a number. So I went for GitHub stars. So Fabien Potentier for Symfony Framework, his number is 22,800 GitHub stars. That's what he's got. Which means that Dave needs something. So I have to give Dave something. So I had to think and, settle down a bit. Right, so I go, right, okay. This is what I went for. It's a clip art picture of a quite depressed sausage with a speech bubble coming out of its mouth that's empty, and I chose the number 7 because I had to choose some sort of number. Thanks, Dave. Thanks, Dave. This is not contributing to the world of technology. Emma Wenderkind here in this tweet, this is a lot worse. We'll start getting more sinister. Emma has since got married. It's actually Bostian now. If you want to check what she does a really, really cool podcast called the Ladybug Podcast. I recommend it. But this tweet here summed up all of my feelings about how I felt about technology, about how we need to be supportive of each other, how we need to display kindness and humanism. Do you write HTML? You're a developer. JavaScript, you're a developer. Python, you guessed it. Let's stop gatekeeping and make this an inclusive and safe place to learn. Is there anything wrong with this tweet? There really isn't, is there? I mean, that is what, in terms of things to ask for, there's nothing wrong with that. Except there is, isn't there? You know what it is. I've got my laser pointer. It's that. It's that. That's your problem. Those 4 letters. HTML is a programming language. Unleash the hounds! Here they are. And it's all like, I mean, see if I could read. I know calculus. Am I a mathematician? How lovely and sarcastic. Can we keep the WordPress people out? To which Emma said, no. HTML is not a programming language. To which you responded, I didn't call it a programming language. I said developers. Got you. Some of this is, I mean, SQL doesn't count. Don't know why. The top right-hand corner is where it starts getting worse, though. Because now, these are people that are starting to feel that their whole profession is under attack by people that are making assumptions or coming in new into the world of tech. You can't just call yourself a doctor. You can't just call yourself a lawyer. I'm the 10 times developer. Like to cover this up. I'm the 10 times developer, and I take all the glory because I am trained, and you've just turned up, and you're the janitor that unclogs the toilet, and you get the glory. That is someone who feels that their whole livelihood is at stake. The person who made that comment, their livelihood probably isn't at stake because they earn $150,000 a year in San Francisco. If I'm a WordPress plugin developer, I am not going to affect your career. Relax, chill. What isn't tool shaming whilst I bash the people, or say bash, I'm trying to show you examples of in the wild of it so that you can see it, but it's important to note that I'm not just saying we all just shut down and we all be nice to each other, because that's not practical. The reason why this differs from other things is it's against the person and not the tool, and this comes back to humanism again, right? It's about people. In tech, we need to start considering people more. So if you say, like, here's an example, or here's a real example from my world. If you use Eclipse as your IDE and you say, I don't like Eclipse because it's buggy, cool, you can say that. There's nothing wrong with saying that. Why am I going to stop you from saying that? Here's a real world quote from Slack, and I put it in Comic Sans. You must be a noob if you use Eclipse, lol. That's not constructive, and that's against the person, and it's judging that person for no reason whatsoever, other than you just seem to be sort of giving your bitterness back to them. Right, what problems does it cause? Now, this is very, very key. There are people that are in this audience that will probably be decision makers at various levels, but even if you're starting out, you don't actually know that you're a decision maker, and we'll get onto that, and kind of the domino effect that these things cause. So, apprentices, if your company takes on apprentices, these people, if they are talented, and you nurture them, have the ability to be your most valuable employees because they level in salary and domain knowledge with your business. That's what makes them valuable. If you start saying, I'm going to judge you, you learnt in jQuery, and then you start being horrible to them, 2 things will happen. Either they'll become like you, and they will become bitter and nasty and gatekeepery. And that's hamstringing their career because of your bitterness, and they will pass it on, and we'll get onto that as well. Or they'll just leave, and you've just lost your talent. Not the best idea, really. And also, similarly, that's people starting out in your business. On the opposite end, someone who has been in your company for 20 years and knows loads and loads of legacy projects and code, if you have the newfangled thing and then you start laughing at them, and I've seen that in action, they will leave, and they will take everything that's in your head, and we've talked about how important documentation is, and we're all rubbish at it. we shouldn't, well, okay, we should be better at it. It's probably a more positive way of saying it. You'll lose that as well. That's not very clever. Some of this is ridiculous. Limiting your talent is a terrible business model. If you say we only want a senior React developer, you will A, be looking for ages, and B, you're not engaging in people that are problem solvers. What you need is you need someone that's a very good JavaScript developer, not I just use this because this is what we use here. That means that it's just limiting your talent. Why would you do that? And reputation. In London, this doesn't matter. When I gave this talk, there's a whole line of people out the door if you want to be horrible to all of your staff, and they leave, and then you go, I want a developer, and everyone puts their hands up. When you're in Norwich, when you're in Birmingham, when you're in Nottingham, when you're in Sheffield, this is not the same. Reputation counts, and people talk. Developers talk. We gossip to each other, and then you go, I don't understand it. After 5 years of being absolutely horrible to everyone, even though I didn't know that I was being horrible, no one's applying. I wonder why no one's applying. Let's think about that. On the wider scale, this is just employees this is just your employees at your company. That's like a wider scale of siloing. I mentioned, operating systems and things like that of, I only use this, I'm a Windows person, and blah, blah, blah. It stops collaborative thinking. The Ginger 2 templating engine in Django, the Twig templating system borrowed off it, and how Spring handles inversion of control and things like that in the Symfony framework in PHP. These are 3 different languages and 3 different frameworks, and they're borrowing each other's patterns off each other to solve problems. If you put them just in boxes, I only do PHP, I only do Django and Python, it stops the collaborative thinking, it puts the silos up. Similarly, operating system wars, things like this for DevOps people are becoming less and less relevant. This is collaborative thinking massively across the whole of the industry. Docker and Windows subsystem and things like this for Linux. These are people that are not feeling completely defined. They don't care. It's the right tool for the right job, and that is important. Oh, tool shaming as a weapon. This is where you see it in practice, and this is what I've experienced. I said this is my story, so this is something that I've seen in action. So, we've already established that really it's the undisputed champion of gatekeeping, but it comes from a thing called the shaming cycle. So, you are, I've already bashed Dave, so that's Sandra, right? And you are really, really 10 times developer and cool, and you never sleep and things like that. And VCs love it, and you put your hand up and say, blockchain, and everyone gives you money. But you've been on Programmer Humor on Reddit loads, and you have loads and loads of really horrid gatekeeping and elitist views. So you're not really Sandra, you're Wario. But you need to hire people. So when you expand, it doesn't stop you making money, so you hire someone. There's someone, and that's Emma, but Emma's new into the industry. You don't know what you're going to. If you impart all of that kind of bitterness, like I said, it will make them like you. So it's not really Emma, is it? Now it's Katie Hopkins, and then it carries on. And here's someone else. I'm not even going to give her a name because it's no longer got a name because it's peers. Ugh! Look at what you're making. This is what we're creating in the industry, and we can't see it. We're starting to be quite blind to it. And the thing is that if you run an agency or something like that, your employees are not going to stick around forever, are they? Eventually, some of them are going to leave. But they haven't left tech, have they? They've gone somewhere else. And if they've gone somewhere else, this is the world that we're creating. And we should not be creating this world because this is not good. This is not good. We don't want Alex Jones and Piers Morgan and Katie Hopkins everywhere. So seeing this in action is, okay, I think we need to do something about this because we definitely don't want this. So why else is it important, before I propose what I think we should start thinking about is, and this is massive, is we think of ourselves as tech people. We are at a tech conference, except we're not just programmers anymore. IT and development and technology is pushing in and permeating into all other areas of society. The high street is being walloped by e-commerce. I spend most of my day coding stuff in Shopify. But we're not just developers, are we? We're data scientists because data is the new oil, and that makes my talk valid because I said data is the new oil. We've got SEO people. We've got digital marketers. we're passing in to other industries. And if we're passing into other industries, and we bring this with us, we're going to make other areas of society equally horrible, and I can see that happening. So let's have a look at what can be done. So look, you make the decisions, even if you're starting out, even if you're in a startup, if you're in a massive company, what you do day to day has a massive impact on people, because we want to be part of a club in tech sometimes, because we want to feel that what we're doing is valuable. But small quips have a big impact, and they really, really, really do. I started slating WordPress developers because somebody said that to me, and I thought, okay, that's what you do. And then it just goes on and on and on, and then before you know it, you've built up a huge list of things that you can take the piss out of people for, and it's not good. It's not healthy. You can shape the future. You can change this. So I thought, how do you change this? If we've got small quips that make a big impact, then we combat it with small solutions. So this comes from a psychologist called Daniel Kahneman, American, and he came up with something called nudge theory. And if you've not seen it in action, you might have done without knowing it. They introduced, under David Cameron's government, they introduced the Behavioral Insights team, which uses nudge theory, which is positive impacts can be made by making very, very small pushes or nudges into the right direction. So when you see someone say, I hear you use jQuery, therefore you're rubbish, nudge them. Nudge. Keep on doing it, and if we all do it, we're going to create a more positive atmosphere. A famous one of the Behavioral Insights team is opt-in pensions. Before, you had to opt into a pension. You had to say, I want a pension, please, government. And they go, yes, here's your government pension. It's really weird now to think that you actually had to do that. The nudge unit went, all right, well, what if we do opt-out pensions? Now, when you are 18 years old or you start your first job, you're enrolled into your pension automatically, and you have to make the effort to come out of it. That's nudge theory in action. That's what we should be doing in tech. And what are the shamers up to? You think it can't harm your business. I mean, I've talked about loads about how it does harm your business, but let's laugh at them because it's always fun. Everything's a battle. Everything's a fight. Yes, it's React versus Angular, it's Vue, blah, 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 blah. Everything's a fight. So what can we have for an example? Really obvious one. Let's go for tabs versus spaces. Massive arguments of like, blah, 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 and when the lint in ESLint solves this, but it doesn't, blah, blah. And in my company, an argument for 3 hours happened over tabs versus spaces. 3 hours. Whew. I thought, 3 hours. I'm going to do some maths. So here you go, did the maths. There it is. 3 hours, 40 grand for the 3 developers are on 40 grand a year, right? It's 236 working days a year. That comes at £169.49. 3 devs at 40k, then divided by 7. So that's the amount of hours in the day, 169 there, £24.21. 236 days and then times 3 because that's the amount of hours, so we end up with £72.63. And then 7 hours a day times 3 with £72.63 is £217.89 that has been spent by my company on an argument that will never ever be settled, and we love arguing about it constantly. That's how much a waste of time elitism can be for your business. I did carry on with more slides for this, but I've taken them out because it's just pointless, and I just thought it was Emacs versus Vim, but this is what I ended up thinking. Who cares? Who cares? I'll show you someone who cares. Linus cares. Linus cares because, and this is not shaming Linus, if you said, Linus, I think Linus Torvalds the inventor of Linux, if I think that you're a tech elitist, he'll go, yes. Yes, I am. He likes it. He likes this kind of debate, and he's arguing for things that arguably are extremely important concepts, but he he named a version control system Git because it meant it was offensive. That's, Linus cares. But someone who doesn't care is me. I don't care. I'm too exhausted. I've shown you 3 frameworks in PHP, and that's exhausted me, and then you saw the JavaScript land, and it was blah, 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 blah. No, are we using Yarn this week? I don't know, because we went back to NPM, but then we come back to Yarn too. I don't have time or the cognitive ability to deal with arguments about tabs versus spaces, or trying to take the piss out of you because you use a different ID for me, because tech is already hard enough without all of that. let's just give us do a quick wrap up. I'm not saying don't debate tools because we have to. I said earlier it's about the right tool for the right job, and that is very, very important. Some tools will be the wrong tool for something, and then you can argue, and you can say, I don't think it's the right tool because. If you say you are suggesting this tool because you are fluent in it and you're a dinosaur, that is against the person, and that is tool shaming, and that isn't good. Debating tools, yes. Nudge when judgment appears. Use nudge theory. No, don't do that. Or try and spin it. Make things positive. We were talking about the story of the code with more with meaningful git commit messages, and John mentioned kindness of how you make positive spins and make things positive, and that is nudging. We can all be better, and we can all do that. And be mindful, not everyone in tech, just because you like really, really active debate and you like going, you shouldn't be using this, you should be using Vue.js this. Some people like to turn up at 9 o'clock in the morning and they like to sit down at their computer and they code with their headphones on, and then they take their headphones off, and they go for lunch, and then they finish off at 5 o'clock and they like to go home. And that's what their job is, and they like that. They don't want to get involved in massive tabs versus spaces arguments. Not everyone likes argument, so don't involve them. Some people getting comfortable. We've just had Nicholas talking about anxiety towards involving tech. If you have to sit down and listen to an argument, 2 businesses ago I actually saw an actual punch being thrown because of a decision about whether to use lambdas. Not everyone likes that. It makes them feel uncomfortable, so don't do it. Context is important. This is a new slide because I kept on missing it out. If you want to make a joke from one person to the other, I actually sort of fell into this trap accidentally where it was something to do with Joomla. And it was a Joomla developer laughing at Joomla, but I didn't know they were a Joomla developer. So I didn't know. So the context is very important if you're allowed to make jokes at each other. The reason why that picture is there is because that is the Birmingham City coat of arms. And that is because I am a Brummie. You are not allowed to slate Birmingham unless you are from Birmingham, and then it is fine. Context is important. And the capitalism of tech, some people said, well, what happens if we don't argue and start slating and taking down tech that we don't like? Everyone will start using rubbish tools forever, except they won't, will they? It will die. I call it the capitalism of tech. Stuff dies. If you come to a new project where it's like a massive analytics thing, it's unlikely that people are going to start off choosing MATLAB for it anymore, because there's new things that have evolved from there. Google Plus is invention of, was trying to do something with monopolies that were already in place. Cold Fusion was trying to reinvent the way the web worked when it was going in a particular direction. And the last one, iTunes. Don't force people to download U2 if they don't want to. Thank you very much. I've been Jim Seconde. I will not be taking a QA for this because this is almost like a slide in itself, because I started doing a QA for this because it's a logical thing of let's debate it. Except what happens is it turns into a trash fire, and then an actual tabs versus spaces argument happened in the audience, which really, really took the whole point of my talk out of context. So, if you want to talk about whether you like what I say or whether you don't like what I say, or your experiences, or how we can try and change things, then talk to me afterwards, but please, no massive arguments about the audience. So, thank you very much.